In the year 2074, humanity still whispers about one of its earliest and most daring missions to the moon. Official records call it Aegis 7, but to the public, it was remembered simply as the day humanity took its first step beyond Earth. The headline celebrated Captain Elias Voss and Commander Ryan Solari as the first humans to set foot on the lunar surface. Billions watched as Voss spoke the words that would be etched into history forever. One small step for one, an infinite leap for all. But what the world didn't know, what history conveniently left out, was that there was a third member of that crew, a man whose story was buried for decades. His name was Lieutenant Kael Draven. He never set foot on the moon. While his crewmates explored the alien soil, Draven remained alone in the orbiting command vessel, silently watching the barren world turn beneath him. His job was simple on paper, but nearly impossible in practice. Keep the ship alive, keep the mission intact, and wait. For over 50 years, he never spoke about what happened during those long, silent hours. Until now. And what he revealed would shake everything we thought we knew about that mission. You see, humanity's fascination with the moon didn't begin in the space age. For thousands of years, civilizations tracked its phases, measured its eclipses, and aligned their calendars to its glow. Some claimed it could control the tides, others swore it could bend the mind itself. But in the 21st century, curiosity turned into a competition, a brutal race between superpowers to claim the moon first. The stakes weren't just scientific, they were political, symbolic, a statement to the entire planet. We can go further than you. The Aegis 7 program was humanity's most ambitious attempt to win that race. Billions in funding, years of preparation, and a crew trained to the breaking point. But what the world saw on that historic broadcast, the flag, the dust, the famous words, was only half the story. The other half was locked away, deep in classified mission logs, buried under layers of silence and denial. And it all begins with what Lieutenant Draven experienced, completely alone, on the far side of the moon. The race for dominance was no longer fought on battlefields, it was fought in the stars. By the early 2060, the Orion Initiative was born, an audacious plan to place a human on the moon and return them safely before the decade's end. It was more than a mission. It was a statement of power, pride, and unshakable resolve. The program unfolded in meticulously engineered stages: suborbital test flights, orbital rendezvous drills, high-risk docking simulations, full lunar landing rehearsals, and countless hours of extravehicular activity training. Every move was a stepping stone to the moment the world would hold its breath. That moment came on August 14, 2069. Billions watched as the Odyssey spacecraft closed in on the lunar surface. The crew, Captain Elias Voss, Commander Ryan Solari, and Lieutenant Kael Draven. After entering lunar orbit, Voss and Solari detached in the landing craft Astra, leaving Draven alone aboard the command vessel Celestia. At precisely 3:14 GMT, the world erupted in awe as Voss stepped down onto alien soil, followed moments later by Solari. For 2 hours, they collected mineral samples, conducted rapid surface experiments, and moved with the deliberate precision of men carrying the weight of history. Before returning, they planted the flag of the United Earth Coalition into the dust, a symbol that would be broadcast endlessly in the decades to come. Meanwhile, far above the surface, Kael Draven was alone. But his story didn't begin here. Born on the orbital colonies of Europa Station, Draven was the son of a deep space freight captain. His early life was a map of constant relocation, mining outposts, frontier stations, and military zones scattered across the outer belt. By his teens, he had already learned to pilot low-gravity skiffs and navigate by the stars. At 22, he graduated from the Helios Academy of Aeronautics and enlisted in the Coalition fleet as a combat pilot, flying missions in the Titan border conflicts. Years later, he was accepted into the elite astronautics division, where he tested next-generation spacecraft and performed high-risk EVA trials in the harsh vacuum of deep space. In 2066, Draven made his first spaceflight as the pilot of the Horizon 3, completing 2 precision docking operations and a hazardous dual spacewalk with Commander Juno Cade. He was originally slated for the Orion 5 mission, but a sudden spinal surgery grounded him for over a year. Fate, however, had other plans. When he recovered, Draven was reassigned, this time to Aegis 7, the mission that would etch his name into a history he never asked to be part of, and into the darkness he would never forget. The spinal surgery had nearly ended his career, but fate has a strange way of redirecting destinies. Missing the Orion 5 mission had felt like a curse at the time, yet it ultimately placed Kael Draven on the crew of Aegis 7, the mission that would carve his name into the deepest shadows of history. His official title was Command Module Pilot. To the public, it sounded almost passive, a supporting role, secondary to the glory of walking on the lunar surface. But in reality, his position carried a weight that could crush a lesser man. Draven was the guardian of the Celestia, the lifeline of the mission, the vessel that would ferry them all back across the cold, endless ocean of space. While Voss and Solari descended in the Astra to explore the moon's surface, Draven's responsibilities began stacking like an endless tower. He was the one who would oversee the separation sequence, detaching the landing craft from the mothership in a ballet of precision that allowed no room for error. A single miscalculation, a mistimed command, and the Astra could drift away into the void, with no way home. Once his crewmates were gone, silence filled the command deck. The world below rotated in pale silver light, and for the first time, Draven was completely alone. People would later call this his isolation period, imagining a man adrift with nothing but his thoughts. But they couldn't be more wrong. There was no time for loneliness. His hands moved constantly over glowing control panels, eyes darting between readouts and sensor graphs. He monitored propulsion systems, adjusted life support cycles, maintained comlink integrity with mission control, and prepared the intricate sequence for rendezvous and docking once the landing craft returned. This phase of the mission was like walking a tightrope between 2 skyscrapers, with no safety net. One wrong angle in the docking maneuver and the Astra would never reconnect, stranding Voss and Solari forever on the moon's surface. And then, he would have to make the journey back to Earth alone. That thought lingered at the back of his mind like a cold shadow. It wasn't just technical vigilance he maintained, it was a constant, unspoken readiness to face the unthinkable. Yet despite the risk, Draven's focus was absolute. The Celestia was more than just metal and circuitry. It was the only bridge between humanity's ambition and survival. Every hum of the engines, every flicker of the status lights, every heartbeat of the ship was his responsibility. And in those hours alone above the moon, he began to realize the mission's greatest challenges might not come from the surface below, but from the darkness surrounding him. While Voss and Solari traversed the desolate plains of the moon in the Astra, Kael Draven became their lifeline, the only voice linking them to mission control across the cold abyss. Every image they captured, every scan of the lunar horizon, every mineral reading flowed first through Draven's console before flashing across the void to Earth. His hands worked the controls with mechanical precision, ensuring the data stream remained uninterrupted. From Mission Control's perspective, he was flawless, steady, composed, unshaken. But beneath that calm exterior, he carried a silent weight, the knowledge that if anything went wrong down there, if the Astra failed to launch back into orbit, he would be forced to abandon them. Alone. He never once allowed that thought to show in his voice. His transmissions were clear, efficient, reassuring, just enough to let Voss and Solari believe that nothing in the universe could touch them. What they didn't know was that Draven had already reviewed the emergency protocols, memorizing the sequence for a solo return to Earth. It was a mental burden no training could prepare you for. His duties weren't just communications and system checks. He also held the keys to the Celestia's most dangerous maneuver, the trans-lunar injection. A perfectly timed engine burn that would break the ship free from the moon's gravity and sling it toward Earth. A single miscalculation here would mean drifting into deep space, forever. It was a responsibility that made him the backbone of the mission, quiet, unseen, but vital. While others would remember the flag, the dust, the glory, Draven's legacy was the unseen thread that held everything together. But as the hours passed and the Astra roamed further from the landing zone, the silence inside the Celestia deepened. Draven's eyes often drifted to the dark curve of the moon beyond the viewport. Somewhere in that vast shadow lay a side of the lunar world no human had ever set foot on. A place invisible from Earth, untouched by human eyes. And as he orbited closer to that hidden frontier, strange thoughts began to creep into his mind. Thoughts about the fragility of life, the scale of the universe, and the unsettling feeling that perhaps, out here, they were not entirely alone. For the next 21 hours, Kael Draven traced a lonely path around the moon, each orbit a loop through light and shadow. But it was the dark half of that journey that left its mark. 48 uninterrupted minutes, when every voice vanished, every signal went dead, and the Celestia drifted in a perfect cocoon of silence. No mission updates, no chatter from Voss and Solari on the surface, no heartbeat from mission control, nothing but the hum of the ship and the sound of his own breathing inside the helmet. To most, that silence would have been maddening, but to Draven, it was something else entirely. He called it serene solitude. Out here, on the far side of the moon, Earth didn't exist, not to the eyes, not to the ears. The lunar mass itself blocked every electromagnetic whisper from the planet. No radio waves, no interference, just the quiet void, as if the universe had muted itself. It was a strange distinction to hold, being the first human to circle this hidden face alone. Others had orbited before, but always in pairs or crews, sharing that radio-dark stretch together. Draven's solitude was total. Out his viewport, the far side was a brutal landscape of scars, endless craters stacked upon craters, untouched for eons. This side of the moon was so radio-quiet, so free from the noise of human activity, that it was considered a perfect location for deep space listening arrays. Here, signals from the sun, or even distant galaxies, could be captured without the distortion of Earth's electromagnetic haze. Unlike the near side, flooded with constant interference, this realm was pure silence, a natural sanctuary for the faintest whispers of the cosmos. As he floated above it, Draven thought about the future, how one day someone might build observatories here, far from the chaos of human transmissions. He remembered an old story from decades ago, when the Changi 4 rover had landed in the Von Karman crater at the moon's south pole, using a relay satellite balanced at the Earth-Moon L2 point to bridge the communication gap. That place had been chosen for its quiet, for its stillness. And now, Kael Draven was here, suspended above it, alone in a darkness so complete, it felt like he was orbiting the edge of reality itself. He couldn't help but wonder, if the moon could hide them from Earth so completely, what else might it be hiding? The far side of the moon was not just silent, it was sacred. From this vantage point, Kael Draven could see the Earth in a way only a handful of humans ever would. As the Celestia drifted above the cratered wastelands, the planet rose over the jagged horizon, a glowing sphere adrift in the eternal dark. It was breathtaking, it was heartbreaking. Every living soul, every dream, every fear, every war, and every love was contained within that fragile blue shimmer. In that moment, Draven felt smaller than he'd ever felt in his life. Not weak, just aware. Aware of how delicate it all was. The silence wrapped around him like a protective shell, muting the chaos of human life. Here, there were no politics, no borders, no noise, only the hum of the Celestia's systems and the steady pulse of his own heartbeat. This was the overview effect he had once heard about but never truly believed in until now. A shift in perspective so profound it redefined how you saw everything. And yet, Draven didn't let himself sink too deep into wonder. He kept busy, running through the docking calculations again and again in his mind, rehearsing the rendezvous steps for the Astra's return. He knew the mission wasn't over, not by a long shot. But something about the far side stayed with him. The rugged landscape below was like a fossilized memory of the universe's earliest days, untouched, unspoiled, and possibly, in ways humanity didn't yet understand, alive. His gaze kept drifting to the same shadowed crater, one that seemed deeper than the others. The light never touched its floor. It was just darkness, a perfect, unbroken void, and the longer he stared at it, the more he felt it staring back. The thought was absurd, impossible. But still, when he looked away, a cold shiver ran through him. Whatever was down there had been hidden from Earth for billions of years, and soon his orbit would take him over it again. The far side of the moon was not just silent, it was sacred. From this vantage point, Kael Draven could see the Earth in a way only a handful of humans ever would. As the Celestia drifted above the cratered wastelands, the planet rose over the jagged horizon, a glowing sphere adrift in the eternal dark. It was breathtaking, it was heartbreaking. Every living soul, every dream, every fear, every war, and every love was contained within that fragile blue shimmer. In that moment, Draven felt smaller than he'd ever felt in his life. Not weak, just aware. Aware of how delicate it all was. The silence wrapped around him like a protective shell, muting the chaos of human life. Here, there were no politics, no borders, no noise, only the hum of the Celestia's systems and the steady pulse of his own heartbeat. This was the overview effect he had once heard about but never truly believed in until now. A shift in perspective so profound it redefined how you saw everything. And yet, Draven didn't let himself sink too deep into wonder. He kept busy, running through the docking calculations again and again in his mind, rehearsing the rendezvous steps for the Astra's return. He knew the mission wasn't over, not by a long shot. But something about the far side stayed with him. The rugged landscape below was like a fossilized memory of the universe's earliest days, untouched, unspoiled, and possibly, in ways humanity didn't yet understand, alive. His gaze kept drifting to the same shadowed crater, one that seemed deeper than the others. The light never touched its floor. It was just darkness, a perfect, unbroken void, and the longer he stared at it, the more he felt it staring back. The thought was absurd, impossible. But still, when he looked away, a cold shiver ran through him. Whatever was down there had been hidden from Earth for billions of years, and soon his orbit would take him over it again.